Hi, this is Whitney Coburn, dating and relationship expert and love coach, welcoming you to the Love Coach in My Pocket podcast, where we talk about all sorts of things related to dating and relationships in this crazy modern world. Thanks for joining us. I hope you loved the episode, and please leave us a review. Hi, I'm Whitney Coburn. Welcome to the Love Coach in My Pocket podcast, where we talk about all things related to dating and relationships in this crazy modern world. Today, we're going to be talking about anxious attachment style. I feel very strongly about this topic because I've dealt with it. Most people are familiar by now, but I will tell you a little bit about what anxious attachment style is. We'll talk a little bit about avoidant attachment style as well, and secure attachment style. We'll talk about where it came from and what causes it and how to heal it. That's going to be our main focus today, is not just understanding it, but how to get through it. All right, so time for a little personal story about how I discovered anxious attachment style. I had habits of being pretty needy, always having somebody, always having either a relationship or someone in the background. This was back in my early 20s. And I remember after breaking up with somebody, I realized that I was usually just going out with people that wanted to go out with me, and I wasn't really choosing them, and I wasn't making much effort to have someone that really blew my mind. It was just like I was settling. So I made up my mind that I was going to have someone that I really looked up to and admired and really, really felt strongly about. And I found this person. They ticked off all the boxes, all the things that I thought I wanted in a relationship. Or in a person, sorry. The relationship was not great. I would be able to see him one day on the weekend, but not all three. I had to pick. He would always keep me at an arm's length. We didn't really get deep into conversations, and I was anxious. I would worry about what he was thinking, where this was going, why haven't I heard from him, what's he doing? I would get obsessive, and it's so hard to distinguish when you're in the middle of that, the difference between love and butterflies and being with someone anxious. I finally found this, I remember it, I was probably on Facebook, this little image of somebody chasing after someone and the other one running away. And it was labeled anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. And I showed it to my boyfriend at the time, and he kind of laughed it off. But it was so spot on. He was absolutely being avoidant. And I know this not only from the way that he was treating me, but I saw it in his other patterns as well, that he told me that he didn't like his parents being too close to him. He didn't like that they would go to his sports games when he was little. There's a lot of things that people do when they're avoidant where they just don't want to attach too closely. They don't want people in their business too closely. So today we're going to focus on the anxious attachment style, because I know that there are lots of you out there that are dealing with this right now. And I just want you to know that there is hope. There is a way out of it, a way to finding that secure attachment. Fast forward to my story, I ended up breaking up with this person, even though I was crazy about him, but I realized that he wasn't crazy enough about me, and it was just after a whole year of that relationship, it was not fulfilling me, and I left him and ended up with the person that would be my husband. So it was a step in the right direction for sure. So what is anxious attachment style? I want to talk about some of the symptoms, some of the signs. And so a lot of it comes from abandonment wounds. When I was growing up, I didn't have my dad around for many years. And I think that left in me this abandonment wound, this desire to have somebody, that I needed somebody, that there was this gaping void. And I think a lot of people do have something like that in common, some kind of abandonment. And it could be that your parent was not around, or it could be that they were not emotionally available, or you just didn't have a close relationship with them. But oftentimes with anxious people, it does start from the childhood. There's this hypervigilance, like you're always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop or anticipating your partner's need. You want to hear from them a lot. You need a lot of reassurance. But my personal take on this, and I've been through a lot, and I've taught hundreds of people about how to date better, how to love better. And I think that most of this is caused by the anxious person and the avoidant person coming together. Because typically the anxious person, there's a lot of things that are not really that bad in them. They want closeness. They want intimacy. They want support. And biologically speaking, we need this. We are tribal creatures. We need intimacy and closeness in our partnerships. And it's in our biology. So when we have a partner, we actually co-regulate with them. And when I'm talking about regulating, it's our energy, it's our emotional regulation, it's our mental regulation, it's connecting our nervous system, it's having our full brain online regulation. So while personal regulation is important, having a partner, we do co-regulate. It's just a scientific fact. It's something that we can't avoid. So if you have a partner that's always angry and always aggressive, that's going to affect you. You're going to have this co-regulation with them where their mood affects you. If you're with someone that's always chipper and always happy, their mood is going to affect you, and you're going to co-regulate with them. So who we choose as our partner is actually one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life, because they affect so much of your personality, your life, your drive. And being with the wrong person, having the wrong relationship can really destroy a person's potential, their happiness. So even though I'm the love coach, I'm not always a fan of keeping a relationship together at all costs. Sometimes the costs really do outweigh the benefits. But let's talk about how to heal this. So we talked about the anxious attachment style being this sensitivity to rejection, sensitivity to abandonment, to feeling unwanted or unneeded. If you are waiting by the phone for someone to text you back and you can't think about anything else and you can't do anything else and it's bringing up all these emotions, then that is probably anxious attachment for you. We do this thing called fawning. So everyone's heard of fight or flight, but there's actually 4 different stress responses. Fight, we know you want to fight with someone. Flight, we run away and hide, flee. Freeze, some people just get deer in headlights when they're under stress. And the 4th one is called fawning. So imagine hundreds of years ago, if this my town is getting destroyed by invaders, what can I do? I can fight, I can run away and hide, I can freeze, or I can say, don't kill me, take me with you. I know this area. I can show you the way. I can cook for you. I can take care of you, right? That's fawning. And it's a stress response. It's like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just gonna be, this is classic people pleasing, but from a state of stress. And anxious attachment people will do this a lot. And what happens is if you're with someone that leans in the opposite direction of wanting to avoid intimacy and closeness, then this cycle happens where it all comes from stress, right? And stress can look like many different things, but really it's a threat. There's a threat to our safety. There's a threat to our relationship lasting. There's a threat to our confidence, our belief in ourself, right? If somebody rejects us, sometimes we can be sensitive to that and think that, we're just unlovable and not worthy. We're never going to find someone. Heavy stuff. But the way that this cycle works is if I feel a threat, like my partner says, well, I can't see you Saturday night, I have plans, and doesn't tell me what they are, if I worry about it and I don't say anything, it's going to fester. It's going to get worse. And then when I do see him, I'm probably going to be a little shut down, a little quiet, or coming at them like, tell me you love me, give me some closeness, I need a kiss. And the more that we push that in an insecure way, the more that person's going to want to bail. And so this is the anxious avoidant trap. It's that we see a sign of threat, and so we go into our pattern, and that triggers the other person to see you as a threat. So they go more into their pattern, and you end up splitting and separating and getting less close and less intimate. So does this sound like you when you're waiting around for your partner to call you or to say yes to something, and you see it as a threat, as tension, as a disturbance, as something upsetting? And so you start to think, uh-oh, maybe something's wrong. Maybe he's mad at me. And so then we'll often reach out to the person, right? We'll say, hey, what you doing? Or I haven't heard from you. And if we get that reassurance, then everything's fine. If they write back and say, yep, looking forward to seeing you, can't wait, we feel relaxed. And yet, if we don't get that, we escalate and it gets worse and worse. And oh my God, I haven't heard from them in all this time and something's definitely wrong. And this is just, it's very natural in our human nature for this to happen. We're hardwired to look for the negative. We're hardwired to notice threats and danger. That's how we survived. But that doesn't work in our modern world anymore. So how do we get over this? How do we break through this? Number one, above all, is if you have an anxious attachment style and you're dating someone with an avoidant attachment style, that is the biggest trigger for you that's going to make things worse for you. So number one is you need to communicate. Don't be afraid to sound needy. We all have needs. Even the avoidant attachment style has attachment needs and intimacy needs, but they've just learned how to suppress them, or they have a pattern of being in fear, or, they've just learned along the way that if you let someone get too close, that's going to cause you to be hurt. And people can break through this with therapy, with their own personal growth, but you can't change anybody else. You can only change yourself. So the fixes that we're going to talk about today are all basically things that you can do for yourself, except the one that is with your partner. Communicate, communicate, communicate. The book the book Attached, where a lot of these theories come from, the last whole part of the book is all about communication. If you need something, speak up. If you haven't heard from them and you're worrying, reach out. And of course, you need to learn how to communicate by not yelling at them, not calling them names, not saying, you're this, you're that, how could you do this? But rather focusing on your I statements, like, I woke up feeling lonely and I'd love to talk to you, right? State what you feel, state what you need. Give them the keys to your happiness. Tell them, I would love to hear from you every morning, or I would love to see you every weekend. And you know what? If you speak your needs honestly and somebody can't meet them, what are you doing with this person? If they consistently can't meet your needs, it's if it's the early stages of dating, get out. If you're with this person and it's been a long time in a long relationship and you're very invested, maybe marriage, kids, get help. You can come to me. I help couples and singles with this issue because a lot of it just stems from misunderstanding each other. You have different points of view. You need to be able to see from the other person's perspective and not take everything as a direct insult or threat. All right, I'm going all over the place, but back to how to heal this. So a lot of it comes from our regulation, our ability to regulate our nervous system. And this is not something that everyone's talking about, right? There's a lot of videos and podcasts and information out there about anxious attachment style and avoidant. And they talk about communication. They talk about noticing your triggers. And all of that is really important. But we need to learn to self-soothe. And self-soothing is something that is done mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. If you have ever tried to talk yourself out of a triggered stress response, you can't just talk yourself out of it because your stress is a physical response. Your heartbeat speeds up, your breathing gets shallow, your pupils dilate, your blood rushes away from your brain to your extremities so you could fight or run if you need to. And so all of this physical stuff requires a physical intervention. So something as simple as giving yourself some physical touch, some soothing touch, right? It's a little bit cheesy, but it works. Scientifically proven. Give yourself a hug, cradle your hand in your face, pet your hair like you would to a little 6-year-old child that's disturbed. Go, oh, honey, come here. Let me take care of you. And we all have different personality types. A lot of people with anxious attachment style might also be very empathic, very sensitive people. And I like to think of those as gifts. They're not personality flaws. They just might not be in the right environments or with the right person. But with the right person, your sensitivity is a gift. It's amazing. And I've experienced this in my current relationship that I've been in for almost 6 years, where I used to be very anxious, but I don't feel anxious anymore. I feel secure. I know that he's here with me. I know that he loves me. He's not afraid to show me that and keep the intimacy alive. Yes. So learning how to regulate yourself through meditation, through embodiment. I teach practices with feminine flow that, I love it so much. You could be so anxious and upset and head spinning and do a flow with me, and you will just feel so calm and collected. At the end of it, you get so much clarity. You can hear the voice of your intuition, your inner wisdom, instead of all the chitter chatter of fear and anxiety. Journaling helps, right? Really being mindful, noticing what was the trigger and what are the facts, right? Because we go into our emotional brain when we're under stress, and so it's all emotions. I'm so upset, I'm so sad, how could he do this? But when you regulate yourself and get your frontal lobe back online, get your thinking back in line, then you can be more understanding, more rational, make a decision about what you need to say to this person, take the next action. You won't be stuck in that panicking mode. Also, having other friendships around is really helpful because you can't rely on your partner, this one person, to handle everything for you and take care of all of your needs all the time. So having other relationships, other friendships, can be really helpful for someone with anxious attachment style. Having boundaries. Boundaries are not a bad thing. And when someone is anxious and they want really intimate, close relationships, they can almost think that boundaries are not a good thing. But walls are not a good thing. Walls do not let anybody through. But a boundary is more like a gate that you monitor, and you decide who comes in and what comes in. And we need to have those boundaries in place. And also, we need to respect other people's boundaries. So if you have a partner who is, they have a boundary, like, I can't spend the night at your house on a weeknight, don't take that so personally. And you do get to decide, does this work for me or not? But what we don't want to do is make it mean something about you and your lovability and your worth. Speaking of that, understanding our self-worth is a great step for people with anxious attachment style, because we often throw away our own self, our own needs, to bend over backwards to please other people in the hopes that they just won't leave. It all comes down to, don't leave me. And the funny thing is, the more avoidant your partner is, the more you probably should leave that person and go find a healthy relationship with someone else that has a secure attachment. So there is insecure attachment, which is both avoidant and anxious. And some people even have a mixture of both. We call these anxious avoidance. And it can depend on who you're with, right? If you're in a relationship with one person, you might feel kind of avoidant and you don't want them too close to you. And then the next relationship you're in, you might want all the closeness and be crazy about this person. So none of those are really what we want in a relationship. It's not just butterflies and love, it's anxiety and it's stress, and it's not healthy for us. So we want to get to a place where we feel secure and we have a securely attached partner. Also, if you have an anxious attachment style and you meet up with someone else that also has an anxious attachment style, you can work on evolving together. So that is sometimes a relationship that can flourish, because both people recognize, oh, I have needs, you have needs, I want closeness, you want closeness. And those kind of relationships can really start off with a bang, like, oh my God, I finally found someone that feels as strongly as I do. So take your time, watch out that it doesn't flame out and end as quickly as it started. And also watch out that you're not fueling each other's anxieties and anxiousness, but rather that you're teaching each other to be more secure and calm. The most important thing that we can do is learn how to communicate for ourselves, to speak up, and to recognize that having needs is human. It's not needy to have needs. We all have needs. It becomes needy when we're needing that person's external validation to prove that we're worthy. We need to be confident in our own self-worth, knowing what we deserve, knowing what we will not put up with, having boundaries, and being able to communicate clearly and just say what we want and what we need, and having good self-soothing, self-regulation tools in place for when we do get triggered, because I don't think there will ever be this perfect version of ourselves where we never get upset and we never get emotional and we're never going to be triggered again, right? We can definitely improve a ton in those areas, but we also need to be ready for that potential trigger that could happen out of the blue. And have the right tools to just get through it quickly so that it doesn't send us out into a downward spiral. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. I encourage you to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to help you with this anxious and avoidant attachment challenge. And tune in next week, where we'll be talking about the importance of self-talk and self-love.